I'm Hope Westbrook, 27 years old, from Boston. Growing up in a family where appearances meant everything, I never expected my passion for environmental science would be my downfall, and eventually, my greatest triumph. That family dinner still haunts me. The moment my mother's words sliced through my heart, "You're no better than a janitor." I left in silence that night, my soul shattered. But they had no idea how much they would come to regret those words. Before I share how they learned their lesson too late, drop a like, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from today. My story begins in Beacon Hill, one of Boston's most prestigious neighborhoods. Our Victorian brownstone stood as a testament to my family's social standing, something my mother, Patricia Westbrook, former Miss Massachusetts, turned socialite, never let anyone forget. My father, Richard Westbrook, was a high-powered corporate attorney whose client list read like a who's who of Boston's elite. From childhood, the expectations were crystal clear. Appearance was everything. Success was measured in dollars and status, and the Westbrook name came with responsibilities. Family gatherings revolved around achievements and connections. My cousins boasted about Ivy League acceptances, while aunts and uncles competed over vacation homes and charity board positions. Every conversation seemed to circle back to status with subtle competitions hidden beneath polite smiles. Unlike my older sister Audrey, who followed the expected path to medical school at Harvard, I found myself drawn to something entirely different. My fascination with environmental science began during 6th grade, when our class took a field trip to a conservation area. While other girls complained about mud on their shoes, I was transfixed by the delicate ecosystem of the salt marsh. The passionate ranger who guided us showed how everything connected, how each small part contributed to the health of the whole system. My grandfather, Arthur Westbrook, was the only one who understood. A self-made man who built his fortune in construction, he valued hard work over pedigree. When I'd visit him, we'd walk through his extensive gardens while he taught me about native plants and sustainable growing practices. "Hope," he'd say with his gentle smile, "find what makes your heart feel useful. That's the only success that matters in the end." Those words became my anchor when my parents' disappointment grew increasingly obvious. When college application season arrived, their dismay was palpable as I chose State University with its excellent environmental science program over the Ivy League options they'd pre-selected. "It's just a phase," my mother assured her friends at the country club. "She'll come to her senses and transfer to a proper school." But I didn't. Instead, I thrived. My undergraduate years deepened my passion as I discovered my specific interest in waste management solutions for urban environments. While it wasn't glamorous, the potential impact was enormous, reducing landfill use, increasing recycling efficiency, and creating more sustainable city systems. After graduation, I accepted a position at Eco Solutions, a small nonprofit focused on environmental innovation. The salary was modest, another disappointment for my status-conscious parents, but the work fulfilled me in ways they couldn't understand. I lived in a small apartment in Cambridge, surrounded by books and research papers instead of designer furniture. My grandfather remained my steadfast supporter, often visiting my tiny office to see my latest projects. "You're doing important work, Hope," he'd say, "the kind that will matter long after we're gone." Meanwhile, family dinners became increasingly tense affairs. My mother would pointedly ask when I planned to get serious about my career. My father would subtly slide business card of law school admissions officers my way. My achievements, a published research paper, a successful community waste reduction program, were acknowledged with tight smiles and quick subject changes. "Environmental science is such an interesting choice," my mother would say to her friends, her tone making clear it was anything but. Hope has always been our free spirit. As the months passed, I began work on a revolutionary sorting system that could dramatically reduce landfill waste through advanced material separation. The technology showed incredible promise in early tests, and my excitement grew with each successful trial. Despite my family's lackluster support, I was beginning to make a name for myself in environmental circles. I had no idea that an ordinary family dinner was about to change everything, shattering what remained of my relationship with my parents, while simultaneously setting me on the path to my greatest success. The evening that changed everything was supposed to be a typical Westbrook family dinner party, perfectly orchestrated to impress and intimidate in equal measure. My mother had invited her usual circle of influential friends, the Prestons, whose banking connections opened doors across New England, the Caldwells, whose pharmaceutical company had just gone public, and Judge and Mrs. Hamilton, whose social approval could make or break reputations in Boston society. I almost canceled. These dinners always left me feeling inadequate with subtle digs about my career choice throughout the evening. But I'd recently had a breakthrough with my waste separation system, and despite past disappointments, some childish part of me still hoped for my parents' approval. I arrived at precisely 7, wearing a simple but professional dress I'd splurged on with my recent research stipend. The house looked immaculate as always. Fresh flowers, perfectly arranged antique silver, polished to a mirror shine, and staff moving silently through the rooms, ensuring everything was flawless. My mother greeted me with air kisses, her critical gaze sweeping over my appearance. "You look healthy, dear," she said, her standard response when she found my outfit lacking but couldn't find a specific flaw. She was stunning as always, in a designer dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent diamonds glittering at her ears and throat. "Thanks for coming," my father said with a distracted smile, already turning back to Judge Hamilton. "Get yourself a drink." I navigated through the pre-dinner mingling, exchanging pleasantries with people who vaguely remembered me as Richard and Patricia's younger daughter, the one who isn't a doctor. But my sister Audrey arrived fashionably late, immediately drawing attention with stories from her prestigious medical residency. By the time we sat for dinner, my mother was on her third martini. I should have recognized the warning sign. She became less filtered with each drink. But I was distracted by conversation with Mrs. Preston, who seemed genuinely interested in environmental initiatives her bank might support. The dinner itself was exquisite. As always, course after perfect course, served on my great-grandmother's china. Conversation flowed around the table. Stock market projections, an upcoming charity gala, political connections, vacation homes in the vineyard. I remained largely silent, recognizing that my contributions to these topics would be limited. Then Judge Hamilton, perhaps attempting to include me, asked about my work. For a brief, hopeful moment, I thought this might be my chance to bridge the gap between my world and my family's. "I'm actually working on something exciting." I began, my voice stronger than I expected. "A new waste sorting system that could reduce landfill input by up to 60% in urban areas." A brief silence fell over the table before Mrs. Caldwell politely asked how such a system would work. Encouraged, I explained the technology, my passion making the technical details accessible. A few guests nodded with genuine interest. "The implications for city planning are huge," I concluded. "We could dramatically reduce waste management costs while significantly decreasing environmental impact." "How interesting," Mrs. Hamilton said with a tight smile. I noticed my mother's posture stiffening, her wine glass refilling for the 4th time. My father looked uncomfortable, quickly attempting to steer conversation toward the Hamiltons' recent European vacation. But my mother wasn't finished. "Imagine," she said, her voice carrying that dangerous edge I recognized from childhood confrontations. "All those years at private school, all those opportunities, and my daughter chooses to work with garbage." The table fell silent. My father stared intently at his plate. "Mom," I said quietly, "this is important environmental work." "Important?" She laughed, the sound brittle and sharp. "You're no better than a janitor, Hope, digging through garbage while your classmates are making real differences in medicine and law." The words hit like physical blows. I felt the blood drain from my face as she continued. "We gave you every advantage, every opportunity, and you throw it away on trash. Do you know how embarrassing it is when the Andersons talk about their daughter clerking for the Supreme Court? And I have to mention what, sorting through people's waste." Every eye at the table was now fixed on us, the elegant dinner party transforming into a horrifying spectacle. My father cleared his throat but offered no defense. "Your sister works 80-hour weeks saving lives," my mother continued, her voice rising. "And you've turned into some kind of garbage girl. Is this really what you want for your life, to be a disappointment, to waste your education playing with trash?" The silence that followed was absolute. Mrs. Preston looked at her plate. Judge Hamilton studied his wine with sudden interest. My sister Audrey stared at our mother in shock. I felt something shift inside me, a final thread of hope that my family might someday understand me snapping clean away. The pain was breathtaking, but with it came a strange clarity. Nothing I could say would change their minds. No achievement would ever be enough. Without a word, I placed my napkin beside my half-eaten meal, stood up, and walked out of the dining room. No tears, no arguments, no defensive explanations, just dignified silence. As I collected my coat, I heard uncomfortable murmurs resuming at the table. My father called my name once weakly, but made no move to follow me. Outside, Boston's spring air felt shockingly cool against my burning face. I made it to my car before the first tears fell, driving away from my childhood home, with blurred vision and a shattered heart. The 20-minute drive back to my apartment passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. Traffic lights melted into streaks of color through my tears as my mother's words played on endless loop in my mind. "You're no better than a janitor." The casual cruelty of it, the public humiliation, the complete dismissal of everything I valued. By the time I reached my apartment building, my sadness had hardened into something else, a quiet, steady anger that felt strangely clarifying. I barely slept that night, alternating between tears and a strange, numb determination that was beginning to take shape within me. Morning brought the inevitable aftermath. My phone blinked with notifications, 3 missed calls from my sister, 2 from my father, and a single text from my mother that read simply, "You've always been too sensitive. Call when you're ready to be reasonable." No apology, no recognition of how deeply she had hurt me, just another dismissal. My father's message wasn't much better. "Your mother had too much to drink. You know how she gets. Perhaps you could call and smooth things over." The Hamiltons were very uncomfortable. That was the moment something crystallized inside me. After years of seeking approval, of making excuses for their behavior, of hoping they might someday see value in my choices, I finally accepted the truth: they never would. And more importantly, they didn't need to. I made a decision that morning, still in yesterday's clothes, with puffy eyes and a hollow feeling in my chest. I would take a step back from my family, not dramatically, not with declarations or ultimatums, but quietly and firmly. I would protect myself from their judgment while I built the life I believed in. First, I called my landlord and arranged to move to a smaller apartment closer to my office. The rent was cheaper, and the location would let me walk to work, a small environmental victory that felt symbolically important. Then I called my grandfather, the only family member whose number didn't fill me with dread. "I heard what happened," he said, his voice gentle. "Patricia called to complain about your dramatic exit without mentioning what she said to cause it." "I'm done trying to please them, Grandpa," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Good," he replied simply. "It's about time, Hope. Live your life on your terms. They'll either come around or they won't, but you can't keep sacrificing your happiness waiting for approval that might never come." Over the next few weeks, I channeled my hurt into work. The waste sorting project became my refuge, the hours of focused problem solving, a blessed relief from thinking about my family. My colleague Jasmine noticed the change in me. "You're here until midnight most nights," she observed, bringing me coffee one evening. "Everything okay?" I hadn't told anyone at work about the dinner disaster, but something about Jasmine's genuine concern broke through my carefully constructed walls. Once I started talking, the whole story poured out. My family's lifelong disappointment, my mother's public humiliation of me, my decision to create distance. "That's horrible," Jasmine said when I finished. "But honestly, sometimes the people closest to us are the least capable of seeing our value. Your work matters, Hope. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Her simple validation meant more than she could know. In the absence of family support, I began building a different kind of support system. Colleagues who shared my vision, mentors who believed in my potential, friends who valued me for exactly who I was. The first test came when Mother's Day approached. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister: "Family brunch on Sunday, Mom expects you there." Not an invitation, an expectation, as if nothing had happened. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "Not available this Sunday, give Mom my best." The fallout was immediate. My phone rang repeatedly. My mother, my father, even my sister. I let each call go to voicemail, listening later to increasingly irritated messages about family obligations and making a scene. My mother's approach shifted to passive aggression. She began sending links to job postings at prestigious firms with notes like, "Something to consider if you're tired of your current situation." When those went unanswered, she escalated to having family friends coincidentally run into me with messages about how much my parents missed me. Father's Day, my birthday, family vacations. With each declined invitation, my absence became a statement louder than any argument I could have made. My silence spoke volumes where my words had always been dismissed. Meanwhile, I was discovering something unexpected: freedom. Freedom from constantly seeking approval I would never receive. Freedom to fully commit to work I believed in without bracing for criticism. Freedom to define success on my own terms. "You seem different." Dr. Walker, my research supervisor, commented one afternoon as we reviewed test results. "More confident." "I'm learning to trust my own judgment," I replied, surprised to realize how true it was. "It suits you," he said simply. 6 months after the dinner incident, my mother sent a rare direct message. "Your continuous absence is being noticed. People are asking questions. This silent treatment is childish and needs to end." I stared at those words, recognizing the familiar manipulation tactics that had worked on me for years. The appeal to social appearances, the dismissal of my feelings as childish, the demand for reconciliation on her terms. For the first time, I deleted the message without feeling guilty. My worth wasn't determined by my family's approval, and I no longer needed to prove anything to them. The realization was both heartbreaking and profoundly liberating. While my personal life had reached a standstill, my professional world was accelerating in ways I'd never imagined possible. 6 months of focused, uninterrupted work had transformed my waste management project from promising concept to working prototype. My team had developed a system using optical sorting technology combined with machine learning that could identify and separate materials with unprecedented accuracy, even items traditionally difficult to recycle. Our small-scale tests showed remarkable results: a 68% reduction in materials sent to landfill with 93% accuracy in sorting recyclables. These numbers weren't just good, they were revolutionary for the industry. Dr. Walker called me into his office one Monday morning, his typically serious expression replaced with barely contained excitement. "Hope I've just gotten off the phone with Green Tech Industries," he said, referring to one of the largest environmental technology corporations in the country. "They've heard about your sorting system and want to see a demonstration." My heart raced. "Are you serious, Green Tech? They're industry leaders." "Completely serious. Their innovation director will be here next week." He handed me a folder. "They're looking for new waste management technologies to develop commercially. If they like what they see, this could mean substantial funding." The validation was overwhelming. After years of my family dismissing my work as worthless, one of the most respected companies in environmental science wanted to see my project. I spent the next week refining our prototype, running endless tests, and preparing presentation materials that would showcase not just the technology, but its potential global impact. The day of the demonstration arrived with perfect autumn weather, golden light streaming through the lab windows as our team made final adjustments. Green Tech sent not just their innovation director, but their CEO, Laura Brennan, a pioneering figure in sustainable technology whom I'd admired for years. "Ms. Westbrook," she said, shaking my hand firmly, "I've read your research papers. Impressive work for someone so early in their career." The demonstration exceeded even my highest hopes. Our system processed the test materials with remarkable efficiency, clearly impressing the Green Tech executives, who exchanged meaningful glances as the results appeared on our monitors. The implications for municipal waste management are significant. I explained, gaining confidence as I spoke. Current systems miss substantial recyclable materials due to contamination or misidentification. Our technology reduces those errors by over 80%. When the demonstration concluded, Ms. Brennan didn't waste time on platitudes. "We want to develop this technology, Ms. Westbrook. Green Tech is prepared to offer substantial funding and resources to scale your system for commercial use with you leading the project team." The offer she outlined left me momentarily speechless. A multi-million dollar development budget, a dedicated team of engineers, and a leadership position with compensation that dwarfed my current salary. Most importantly, it was an opportunity to see my work implemented on a scale that could make genuine environmental impact. This technology could transform urban waste management, Ms. Brennan continued. We believe it has global potential. After she left, I sat alone in the lab, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. Professional validation beyond my wildest dreams, alongside the painful awareness that the people who should have believed in me first, my family, had instead belittled my work so thoroughly. That evening, doubt crept in. Was I really capable of leading such a significant project? My mother's words echoed unhelpfully, playing with trash. Dr. Walker found me still in the lab, staring at simulation results without really seeing them. Having second thoughts, he asked gently. Just wondering if I'm the right person for this, I admitted. It's a huge responsibility. He considered me thoughtfully. Hope I've mentored dozens of scientists over my career. Few had your combination of technical brilliance and genuine commitment to environmental change. Green Tech didn't offer you this opportunity as a favor. They offered it because they recognize your exceptional talent. His confidence helped quiet the doubtful voices. The next morning, I accepted Green Tech's offer. The following months were a whirlwind of activity. I assembled a team of environmental engineers and computer scientists to refine and scale the technology. We worked through countless technical challenges, celebrating small victories and pushing through frustrating setbacks. My life became a blur of lab tests, team meetings, and late nights refining algorithms. 4 months into the project, we installed our first commercial-scale system at a recycling facility in Portland. The results exceeded even our projections, a 72% reduction in landfill-bound waste with significant cost savings for the municipality. Local news covered the installation, featuring interviews with city officials praising the technology. I didn't send the news clippings to my family. Their approval no longer seemed necessary. As word spread through industry channels, more cities expressed interest. Chicago, Atlanta, Seattle. Each successful implementation built our reputation further. Environmental publications began featuring our work with one industry journal, calling our system the most significant advancement in waste sorting technology of the decade. When Ms. Brennan invited me to present our results at Green Tech's annual sustainability conference, I found myself addressing a room filled with environmental leaders, government officials, and industry innovators. Standing at that podium, explaining the technology I developed, I realized how far I'd come from that devastating family dinner. The room's enthusiastic response confirmed what I was finally allowing myself to believe my work mattered. After the presentation, a distinguished older gentleman approached me. "Remarkable work, Ms. Westbrook," he said, extending his hand. "Your waste reduction numbers are unprecedented." I recognized him immediately. Senator James Collins, chairman of the Environmental Protection Committee. "Thank you, Senator. That means a great deal coming from you. I'm convening a panel of environmental experts to advise on upcoming legislation," he said. "We need innovative thinkers like you. Would you consider joining us?" The invitation was beyond anything I could have imagined a year earlier, a chance to help shape environmental policy at the national level. As I accepted, I couldn't help but think how my mother would have reacted to seeing me speaking with a U.S. senator about my garbage work. Later that week, I received a substantial bonus from Green Tech as our technology began generating significant revenue. After years of struggling on a nonprofit researcher's salary, I finally had financial security. I purchased a modest but beautiful condo near Boston Harbor. Nothing like my parents' mansion, but perfectly aligned with my values, with sustainable features and a stunning view of the water. As my professional reputation grew, I began receiving interview requests from environmental publications, industry journals, and eventually mainstream media interested in our waste revolution. Each piece further established me as an authority in my field. Jasmine, now working alongside me at Green Tech, joked that I needed a publicist to manage all the attention. "Have you told your family about any of this?" she asked one evening as we celebrated another successful implementation. "No," I admitted. "We haven't spoken in nearly a year." "Their loss?" she said, raising her glass. to being no better than a janitor while transforming an entire industry. We laughed, but beneath the humor lay a painful truth. My greatest professional triumphs remained unshared with the people who had once been central to my life. Despite everything, a small part of me still wished they could see what their garbage girl had accomplished. I had no idea that circumstances were already in motion that would force that reckoning sooner than I expected. The call came on a Tuesday morning as I reviewed implementation plans for our newest municipal client. My grandfather's number flashing on my phone was unexpected. We usually spoke on Sunday afternoons. "Grandpa, everything okay?" His normally steady voice sounded strained. "Hope I've had a minor heart attack. Nothing too serious," he added quickly. "But I'm at Massachusetts General." I was in a taxi within minutes, work immediately forgotten. The hospital corridors seemed endless as I searched for his room, my mind racing with worry. When I finally found him, the sight was jarring. My robust, vital grandfather looking suddenly smaller against the white hospital sheets, monitors beeping steadily beside him. "You didn't need to rush over," he said, though his smile told me he was glad I had. Of course I did. I took his hand, alarmed by how fragile it felt. What happened? "Chest pains while gardening. Neighbor called the ambulance." He waved dismissively. "Doctors say it was mild. I'll be fine with some medication and lifestyle adjustments." Before I could respond, a nurse appeared. "Mr. Westbrook has another visitor." My father stepped into the room, stopping abruptly when he saw me. We hadn't spoken in 11 months. He looked older somehow, new lines etched around his eyes. "Hope," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "I didn't expect. It's good to see you." The awkward silence that followed was mercifully interrupted by my grandfather. "Now that you're both here, I have something important to discuss." His serious tone immediately concerned me. "Is there something you're not telling us about your condition?" "My health will be fine," he assured us. "It's your family business that's in trouble." My father stiffened visibly. "Dad, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," my grandfather interrupted firmly. "Hope deserves to know what's happening." He turned to me. "Your father's law firm is facing a major environmental lawsuit. Riverton Manufacturing, one of his biggest clients, has been violating disposal regulations for years. The EPA finally caught up with them." I looked at my father in disbelief. "Is this true?" His silence was confirmation enough. "The firm is facing significant financial exposure," my grandfather continued. "And that's not all. Many of your family's investments are tied to companies now under scrutiny for environmental practices." The regulatory landscape changed too quickly. My father finally said, his voice defensive. "Nobody saw these new standards coming." "Nobody except environmental scientists who've been warning about this for years," I said quietly. My grandfather squeezed my hand. "Your mother's social standing has been affected too. Boston society has become increasingly environmentally conscious. Her friends with children your age are bragging about their kids' work in sustainable industries, the very work your mother dismissed." The irony was almost too perfect. While my family had been mocking my career choice, the world had been shifting toward valuing exactly the expertise I'd developed. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Because they need your help, Hope," my grandfather said gently. "Your expertise could save the firm and protect the family's financial future. The question is whether you're willing to offer it after how they've treated you." And my father looked genuinely uncomfortable, something I'd rarely seen. "We wouldn't ask if the situation wasn't serious," he admitted. "Your mother doesn't even know I'm here." I felt a complex mix of emotions, vindication, lingering hurt, and unexpected compassion. The idea of my proud parents needing my help, the daughter they'd dismissed as worthless, carried a certain poetic justice, yet revenge had never been my motivation. "I need time to think about this," I said finally. "Of course," my grandfather nodded. "But don't take too long. The situation is deteriorating rapidly." As I prepared to leave, he held my hand again. "Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you, Hope. Your work is making a real difference in the world." Those simple words, the validation I'd sought from my parents for years, meant everything coming from him. Over the next few days, I researched Riverton Manufacturing's environmental violations. The situation was indeed serious. Systematic improper disposal of chemical byproducts affecting groundwater in 3 communities. The kind of case that could bankrupt a company and severely damage the reputation of the law firm defending them. After much reflection, I called my father. "I'll help," I said when he answered. "Not for revenge or reconciliation, but because protecting those communities from further environmental damage is the right thing to do. I'll need complete access to all documentation and full authority to implement necessary changes." His relief was palpable. "Thank you, Hope. Whatever terms you want." "One more thing," I added. "I'm doing this for Grandpa and for those affected communities, not for you or Mom. Our personal relationship remains unchanged until I see genuine recognition of how you've treated me." The meeting at my parents' house the following Sunday was as uncomfortable as I'd anticipated. My mother's initial cool greeting quickly gave way to obvious relief when she realized I was there to help rather than gloat. My father presented the case files in his home office, carefully explaining the extent of the problem. "Riverton has been using outdated disposal methods for nearly a decade," he admitted. "The EPA is seeking significant penalties, and 3 class action lawsuits have been filed by affected communities. I'll need to bring in my team to assess the damage and develop remediation plans," I explained. "And Riverton will need to completely overhaul their waste management systems." "Whatever you think is necessary." My father agreed, a phrase I'd never heard from him before. Over the following weeks, I divided my time between green tech and salvaging my family's situation. My team assessed Riverton's facilities, documenting violations, and developing comprehensive remediation strategies. We designed a new waste processing system specifically for their manufacturing byproducts, one that would not only comply with regulations, but exceed them. Working with Riverton's executives proved challenging. Many resented the expense and disruption. But when I presented the alternative of bankruptcy and criminal charges, resistance faded. My mother maintained a careful distance during this period, our interactions limited to necessary pleasantries. I occasionally caught her watching me during meetings at the house, a strange expression on her face, as I confidently directed executives and engineers 3 times my age. The turning point came during a crucial meeting with EPA officials. I presented our remediation plan demonstrating how the new systems would prevent future contamination while addressing existing damage. The officials were clearly impressed. "This is one of the most comprehensive remediation proposals we've seen," the lead investigator admitted. "If implemented as described, we would consider reducing the penalties significantly." As the meeting concluded successfully, I noticed my mother standing in the doorway. She'd been listening. "That was remarkable," she said afterward, her voice uncertain. "You really understand all of this technical information." "It's what I've been doing for years, Mom," I replied simply. "The work you called garbage," she flinched slightly at the reminder. "I may have been hasty in my assessment." It wasn't an apology, but from my proud mother, it was unprecedented acknowledgement of error. The final resolution exceeded even my best projections. With our remediation plan in place, the EPA agreed to reduced penalties. The class action suits were settled for reasonable amounts, with guarantees of environmental restoration. Riverton emerged damaged but viable, with state-of-the-art waste management systems that would prevent future violations. My father's law firm was credited with achieving an innovative settlement, salvaging their reputation, and potentially opening a new practice area in environmental compliance, something I couldn't help but appreciate for its irony. As for my mother, the social redemption was equally significant. At a charity gala she hosted, I overheard Mrs. Hamilton, the same judge's wife who had witnessed my humiliation at that fateful dinner, commenting to another guest, "Patricia's daughter Hope is doing fascinating work in environmental technology. So forward-thinking. They say she's revolutionizing waste management systems across the country." My mother's reply was unexpected. "Yes, Hope has always had remarkable vision. We're extraordinarily proud of her accomplishments." The statement was partially for show, of course, my mother's instinct for social advantage automatically positioning herself to benefit from my success. Yet there was something in her tone that suggested she might actually be beginning to believe it. Word of my involvement in the Riverton case spread quickly through environmental circles, enhancing my already growing reputation. Green Tech capitalized on the publicity highlighting our waste management technology as the solution chosen for one of the year's most high-profile environmental remediation projects. Within months, our client list expanded dramatically to include major corporations eager to avoid Riverton's fate. Our sorting technology, initially designed for municipal waste, was being adapted for industrial applications, ranging from manufacturing to pharmaceuticals. "We need to expand the team," Ms. Brennan announced during our quarterly review. "The demand is exceeding our capacity, and hope we want you to lead the new industrial applications division." The promotion came with a substantial salary increase and equity in the company, financial security beyond anything I'd imagined possible when I'd chosen my impractical career path. As our technology gained recognition, invitations to speak at conferences and industry events became routine. Standing on stages from San Francisco to Singapore, explaining the environmental and economic benefits of our systems to audiences of industry leaders, I occasionally reflected on how far I'd come from that devastated young woman who'd fled her family's dinner table in tears. The professional recognition reached its peak when Environmental Innovation Journal named me to their 30 under 30 list of influential young leaders in sustainability. The accompanying profile highlighted my journey from small nonprofit researcher to industry-changing innovator. Westbrook's waste management systems have been implemented in 12 major U.S. cities and are expanding internationally, the article stated. Her work represents the most significant advancement in the field this decade, with potential global impact on urban sustainability. The morning the issue was published, I received an unexpected text from my sister Audrey. "Saw the article. Really impressive, Hope. Congratulations." It was our first direct communication in over a year. A small olive branch, but meaningful nonetheless. That same week, I received notification that our technology had been nominated for the Preston Environmental Excellence Award, one of the most prestigious recognitions in the field. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Prestons had been guests at that humiliating dinner, witnesses to my mother's cruel dismissal of my work. The award ceremony was scheduled at Boston's Grand Harbor Hotel, an exclusive venue where my mother had hosted countless charity events. As the date approached, I debated whether to invite my family. Despite our tentative professional reconnection through the Riverton case, our personal relationship remained strained. After much consideration, I sent formal invitations. My grandfather confirmed immediately. My father accepted with a polite note of congratulations. My mother's response came last, a simple "we'll be there" that revealed nothing of her thoughts. The night of the ceremony, I arrived early to review my acceptance speech, still not entirely convinced I would win, but prepared just in case. The ballroom filled with environmental leaders, corporate executives, and policymakers, a gathering of influential figures who now saw me as a peer rather than an idealistic young researcher. I spotted my family as they entered. My grandfather beaming with genuine pride, my father looking unexpectedly nervous, and my mother stunning as always, in an elegant gown, her expression carefully composed. They were seated near the front, directly in my line of sight from the stage. Throughout the dinner, I mingled with colleagues and industry leaders, occasionally catching glimpses of my mother observing these interactions. Once I noticed her overhearing Mrs. Preston telling another guest, "Hope Westbrook's work is absolutely transformative. She's the future of environmental innovation." The announcement, when it came, still felt surreal despite my team's confidence. For revolutionary advancements in waste management technology with global environmental implications, this year's Preston Environmental Excellence Award goes to Hope Westbrook and the Green Tech Industrial Applications team. The applause was thunderous as I made my way to the stage. Looking out at the audience, at the faces of people who respected my work and understood its value, I felt a profound sense of validation. My gaze fell on my family's table. My grandfather was on his feet applauding enthusiastically. My father clapped with what appeared to be genuine appreciation. And my mother was blinking back tears, something I'd rarely seen in my entire life. My acceptance speech acknowledged my team, my mentors, and the municipalities that had taken a chance on our technology. I concluded with words I hadn't planned, but felt compelled to add. Environmental work isn't always glamorous. It's often challenging, sometimes unglamorous, but always essential. To anyone pursuing a path that others don't understand or value, trust your vision. The world may catch up to you eventually. The standing ovation that followed was overwhelming. As I returned to my seat, surrounded by congratulatory handshakes and backslaps from colleagues, I noticed my mother watching me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret, something between regret and revelation. Later that evening at the reception, she approached me alone, while my father was engaged in conversation across the room. "You were magnificent up there," she said quietly. "So confident. So authoritative." "Thank you," I replied, uncertain where this was heading. I was wrong, Hope. The word seemed physically difficult for her to pronounce. What I said that night at dinner, I was terribly, inexcusably wrong. I stared at her, momentarily speechless. In 27 years, I had never heard my mother admit to being wrong about anything significant. "Your work is important," she continued. "I didn't understand it then. I was focused on appearances, on what my friends would think. I never considered the actual value of what you were doing." "That hurt more than you know," I said finally. "Having my own mother mock me in front of everyone." "I know." She looked down briefly. "Pride has always been my worst quality. It kept me from seeing what was right in front of me, a daughter doing meaningful work that makes a genuine difference. It wasn't a complete healing. Too much had happened for that. But it was a beginning, a crack in the wall that had formed between us. As I drove home that night, a ward in the passenger seat beside me, I reflected on the journey. From humiliated dinner guest to award-winning environmental innovator. From seeking family approval to finding my own measure of success. From silence born of pain to silence transformed into power. The most powerful response to dismissal hadn't been argument or explanation, but simply moving forward and letting my work speak for itself. In the end, success had made my case more eloquently than words ever could. 2 years after that devastating family dinner, my life had transformed in ways I never could have predicted. My waste management technology was now implemented in 27 cities across 3 continents. Green Tech had created a separate division specifically for my innovations, with a team of 40 engineers and scientists working under my direction. The environmental impact was exceeding even our most optimistic projections. Millions of tons of waste diverted from landfills, significant reductions in processing costs, and measurable improvements in recycling rates. The professional success brought personal changes too. I'd moved from my modest apartment to a comfortable condo overlooking Boston Harbor. Nothing ostentatious but beautiful in its understated way, with sustainable features throughout. The space reflected my values: environmentally conscious, practical, and peaceful. More significant than these external changes was my internal transformation. The painful break from my family had forced me to build a life entirely on my own terms, surrounded by people who genuinely valued me and work that fulfilled my deepest purpose. I discovered a confidence that came not from external validation, but from trusting my own judgment and abilities. "You seem lighter somehow," Jasmine observed one evening as we shared dinner after a long day of meetings. "More at peace." I realized. I'm not carrying the weight of trying to be someone I'm not anymore. The healing with my family had begun slowly in small, careful steps. After the award ceremony, my mother had made tentative efforts to reconnect. Coffee meetings that started awkwardly but gradually became more comfortable. Careful conversations that skirted around past hurts while attempting to build something new. My father, in his more reserved way, had shown his changing perspective through actions rather than words. He'd recommended my expertise to colleagues facing environmental compliance issues. He'd sent articles about my field with brief notes. "Thought this might interest you." Small acknowledgments of my professional world that would have been unimaginable 2 years earlier. My grandfather, fully recovered from his heart attack, remained my most steadfast supporter. Our Sunday afternoon garden walks had resumed now, often including discussions of my latest projects. His quiet pride in my accomplishments meant more than any public accolade. The most significant step in our family healing came unexpectedly. After declining numerous invitations to family gatherings, I decided to host Thanksgiving at my condo. It would be the first time my entire family had been together since that fateful dinner. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Jasmine asked when I told her my plans. I think so, I replied. It's time to see if we can build something new. I spent days preparing cooking dishes that honored my grandfather's love of traditional New England cuisine, while incorporating my own preference for locally sourced ingredients. The table was set with simple elegance autumn leaves and candles, creating a warm atmosphere against the backdrop of the harbor view. When my family arrived, there was an initial awkwardness. Too many memories, too much unspoken history. But as we settled into dinner, something shifted. Conversation flowed more naturally than I'd expected. My sister Audrey shared stories from her medical practice. My father discussed a new environmental compliance division he was considering for the firm. My grandfather beamed watching his family finding tentative new connections. After dinner, as others gathered in the living room, my mother joined me in the kitchen as I prepared coffee. "This is a beautiful home, Hope," she said, looking around at the space I'd created. "It suits you." "Thank you," I replied, surprised by her sincerity. She hesitated, then continued in a voice so quiet I almost missed it. "I need to say something I should have said long ago." I stopped what I was doing, giving her my full attention. "I am truly sorry for what I said that night." Her voice wavered slightly. "Calling you, comparing you to a janitor, dismissing work that has proven to be important and valuable. I was cruel, and I was wrong." The apology I'd once desperately needed now arrived when I no longer required it for my own healing. Yet it mattered still, not for validation, but for the possibility of genuine reconciliation. "What made you change your mind?" I asked quietly. "Watching you," she admitted, "seeing the respect you command, understanding the impact of your work, and honestly, realizing how many of my friends now boast about their children's environmental careers, the very work I mocked you for choosing." I couldn't help but smile at the irony. "But it's more than that," she continued, surprising me. "Seeing you build this life, successful on your own terms without compromising your values, it's made me question many of the measures of success I've always accepted without thinking." It was perhaps the most honest conversation we'd ever had. "I can't promise things will be perfect between us," I told her. "There's a lot of history to work through, but I'm willing to try if you are." She nodded, blinking back tears. "I'd like that very much." The rebuilding of our relationship progressed slowly over the following months. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns emerged, when my mother's status consciousness clashed with my values, when painful memories resurfaced. But there was also genuine effort on both sides to understand each other better. My professional life continued to flourish. I established a scholarship program for students pursuing careers in environmental science, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds. The first recipients included a brilliant young woman whose passion for sustainable urban planning reminded me of my younger self. Perhaps the most meaningful development came 6 months after our Thanksgiving dinner. I was invited to speak at a career day at my former high school, sharing my journey with students considering environmental fields. To my surprise, my mother asked if she could attend. Watching from the back of the auditorium, she heard me describe the challenges and rewards of my work, including the personal obstacles I'd faced from those who didn't understand its value. After the presentation, as students gathered to ask questions, I noticed several girls particularly engaged taking notes and asking thoughtful questions about environmental careers. Later, my mother commented, "Those girls looked at you the way I used to look at successful lawyers and doctors, with absolute admiration. You've become a role model, Hope." Coming from her, this recognition meant something profound, not because I still needed her approval, but because it represented how completely her perspective had shifted. My grandfather, witnessing our gradually healing relationship, observed, "Sometimes people can only value what they once dismissed when the world changes around them enough to shake their certainties." His wisdom, as always, captured the essence of what had happened. My family hadn't changed because I'd argued or pleaded or explained. They'd changed because I'd walked away in silence, built success on my own terms, and let time reveal the truth they couldn't initially see. On the second anniversary of that painful dinner, I took a group of environmental science students on a tour of our newest facility, Watching their excitement as they witnessed our sorting technology in action, I felt a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. When I was your age, I told them people often dismissed environmental work as unimportant or unglamorous, but I believe this field could make a genuine difference in the world. One quiet girl at the back raised her hand. Did you ever doubt yourself when people didn't support your choice? I considered her question carefully. Yes, there were difficult moments of doubt, times when even those closest to me couldn't see the value in what I was doing. But I discovered something important. Sometimes you have to trust your own vision even when others can't yet see what you see. Her thoughtful nod suggested my words had resonated in exactly the way I'd hoped. That evening, reflecting on how far I'd come, I realized the most powerful lesson of my journey true worth isn't determined by others' opinions, but by the courage to live according to your own values. Sometimes the most eloquent response to those who underestimate you isn't argument, but silent, determined action that eventually speaks for itself. Have you ever had someone dismiss your passion or dreams? How did you respond, with words or with actions? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming judgment to find success on your own terms. And remember, sometimes the people who understand your value least are the ones who should know it best. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you always find the courage to follow your own path, even when others can't yet see where it leads.